As adaptations of video games continue to come out, you bet that I'm going to keep talking about them. Last year I talked about all of these, I talked about The Last of Us back in March, and now, my friends, it's time to talk about the big kahuna, the screen adaptation of perhaps the most widely known and beloved game franchise out there, Mario. Even though Hollywood tried to bring the Italian-American stereotype brothers to the big screen back in 1993, everybody has pretty much shut that film out from public consciousness. The original Mario movie was so maligned that it kept Nintendo from licensing their IP for many, many years. That is, until they struck up a partnership with... This company is an affront to everything I appreciate about the art of animation. And yet, I had hoped that they would produce something good here. Considering that Nintendo and Shigeru Miyamoto were also directly involved with the production, it led me to believe that it could result in something worthwhile. Now that it's out, it seems like most people, gamers or otherwise, seem pretty happy with the end result. Certainly all of the men in suits are happy, given how much money this film has raked in over the past couple months. But what do I think? Well, it's certainly, something. You should say that no matter what you think of this movie, I don't want anything I say here to compromise whatever your opinion was. If you loved this movie, great, hold on to that. That is your experience and should be cherished. Nobody should ever feel insecure about their opinion simply because other people in their circle may disagree. Be confident in what you genuinely enjoy and embrace that. After all, I don't think anyone could come out of this experience feeling like the people over at Illumination don't have any love for the Mario universe. You say what you will about the studio as a whole, but they have done a great job bringing the world of the Mushroom Kingdom to the silver screen. All of the designs feel true to their video game counterparts, most especially with how faithfully the characters themselves mirror their versions from the games. Everything about the presentation just looks clean and vibrant, and there is clearly more effort put into visual fidelity compared to other Illumination films. Yes, much of that is owed to the wealth of resources that Nintendo would have lent to the studio, but the movie is eye candy nonetheless. Such is especially the case for people like me who have spent years playing these games and can appreciate the immense amount of detail. But here's the thing, while movies are a visual medium, you can't just show a bunch of flashy images and expect them to coalesce into a good story. Not everyone can be Stanley Kubrick. The reason why most of the Mario games can get away with threadbare stories is because they have been driven largely by gameplay. Mario and his friends can exist as these thinly drawn personalities since they're primarily mascots for Nintendo's brand that just so happen to be playable. However, that doesn't mean that a Mario game always has to be devoid of narrative. RPGs like the Paper Mario series have proven that you can tell some fun and legitimately well-crafted stories in this universe. So why should a movie be any different? Yes, these games are usually not emotionally or thematically complex, but were it not for Super Mario Bros. On the NES, the video game industry likely never would have recovered, or at least, it wouldn't have had the dramatic bounce back that it did. Time and time again, the folks at Nintendo making Mario games have innovated and revolutionized what is possible with video games. It's safe to say that this franchise has a legacy that simply cannot be matched for the video game medium, both for its many beloved characters and iconography, but also for the indelible impact these games have left on the world. Ideally, the best case scenario is that we would have gotten a movie that services the massive fan base, while also honoring the series' rich legacy with meaningful themes and characters. Something like the Lego Movie, perhaps. A movie doesn't necessarily need to be particularly deep in order for those two things to happen. Time and care is of the essence when putting together a film like that. But I think it's a reasonable expectation to say that the Super Mario Bros. Movie could have endeavored to be as innovative with the concept of a video game movie, just as the games themselves do. However, like many other movies that Illumination has made, this screenplay just screams minimal effort. The simultaneously best and worst aspect of this movie is that it's not only short, but that it moves at the pace of a bullet bill. The film moves by so fast that even if what is being shown on screen isn't winning over a viewer, at least they won't be quote-unquote bored. There's too much visual and auditory noise for someone to be completely dejected from what they're watching. I guess this is something that would make parents happy, since their kids can be injected with a fast, colorful blast of the cinematic equivalent of candy. Kids will laugh and bounce in their seats, as they did in the screening I attended earlier in April. It's likely that the folks at Illumination animated and edited the film in this manner to ensure that their audience, particularly those of the very young demographic, wouldn't lose their sugar high. But if we are to compare cinema to food, as I like to do, then consider this. Consuming something sweet is not inherently a bad thing. There's fun to be had with junk that's jam-packed with sugary goodness. I'd argue that it's good for someone in a psychological sense to take a reasonable break from healthy foods every now and then to splurge. But relying on sugar or having a large amount of it at once is a different story. Because of how quickly the body digests something primarily based on sugars, it can leave that person tired and dissatisfied, and then potentially lead that person to accidentally overeat. In a similar sense, a movie that moves at a brisk pace but offers little of real lasting value within that short amount of time will leave the viewer wanting, such is how it was for me. After all, as I touched on earlier, I love the Mario series, which made it easy for me to play along with the journey. I really responded to the excellent musical score, which effortlessly and reverently blends chiptunes from the games into new, orchestrated compositions. I can appreciate the fluid action scenes that take full advantage of the fact that the film is animated, piecing together sequences that fill the wide screen space with spectacle and color. Princess Peach being a capable, proactive heroine that also earnestly supports Mario in his quest was awesome to see. Jack Black was perfectly cast as Bowser, in which he can turn on a dime from conveying a canonically accurate and pathetic incel into a truly menacing foe, while I also cackled with delight when the film let Black off his leash and go full Tenacious D with the musical numbers. However, the movie went by so quickly that there was no time for any story beats and character relationships to breathe. When Peach tells Mario of her mysterious origins and wonders what the implication of another human being existing in the universe are, well, that storyline pretty much goes nowhere. There's hardly any cliched conflict in their relationship, which was nice, but the audience doesn't get the opportunity to see their partnership naturally develop either. Such is the case for pretty much every major plot beat and character interaction in the film. Any meaningful conversation that the film could have allowed to flourish into something more natural and interesting is shortened to where a scene is over before it really begins. Sometimes major decisions on the part of the protagonists would come to fruition after only a few lines of dialogue total were uttered by everyone present in the scene. To even call these points in the story scenes would be disingenuous, since that term doesn't paint an accurate picture of how much they add to the plot and characters at hand, as thinly drawn as both are. Those half-baked elements give the impression that the team had a blank check to do whatever they want, but were beholden to a budget of how many minutes of the audience's time they could use up. This leaves the film jam-packed with that sugary, memberberry goodness of recognizable iconography, but no bread to lather the memberberry jam onto. To continue with the food analogy, I didn't necessarily need the Super Mario Bros. Movie to be a plate full of grilled salmon and veggies. Instead, I think the more accurate way to pinpoint what I feel the Mario movie should have been is a unique, customized thin crust pizza. With a serving like this, you may not be getting the healthiest or most artistically sophisticated offering possible, but you do get something of substance, flavor, a variety of nutrients, and is ultimately just right in terms of how filling it is. The experience of consuming something like that can be reliable due to how many pros outweigh the cons in that scenario. This movie, on the other hand, didn't offer fulfillment on a similar level to what its source material generally provides. With the platformers, you're constantly feasting on some of the most inventive level design, smoothest controls, and catchiest music you can find out of any game, period. The Super Mario Bros. Movie may look like it belongs in the Mario universe, and it does provide plenty of superficial entertainment value, but again, it's all a bunch of cinematic sugar. Yet in the end, I'm not really surprised that Illumination is once again profiting greatly from one of their films. The producers at Illumination found a formula for making family films which works so well that this movie has crossed the $1 billion mark in ticket revenue, setting the record for the highest grossing video game adaptation of all time. The fact that people across the globe keep consuming Illumination's emotionally bare, sanitized, and annoying slop without seriously challenging them on a critical level is why they keep turning out to be such mundane experiences. I would admittedly watch this movie over literally anything else the studio has made, aside from maybe the original Despicable Me, but that's not exactly a high bar we're talking about here. Many other YouTubers have bemoaned how Illumination just does not care to exercise a modicum of creativity with their art direction and storytelling, and I will do so here as well, but for a different purpose. This will also be the final point I make in the video. Now, I love that we live in a timeline where legitimately great video game adaptations are a thing now. Between Castlevania, Arcane, Cyberpunk Edgerunners, and most recently The Last of Us on HBO, we have proof that great cinema or television can come from adapting video games into another medium. But each of these adaptations don't put all of their eggs into the memberberry basket. They absolutely do borrow recognizable iconography and even musical themes from the games they're based on, but each develop their own reputations because they're all built on solid foundations of well-written stories. You certainly wouldn't have gotten me to care about a friggin' League of Legends TV show were it not for how strong the characters and narrative are. As for the Mario movie, a lot of people seem to have really enjoyed it, but I think it sets a bad precedent for video game adaptations moving forward. Film studios, particularly animation ones, are going to see how much money was churned out from a minimal effort storyline that's riding on the coattails of brand association. If Illumination can earn over $1 billion and counting from a movie like this, what's to stop other studios from adapting other Nintendo franchises and not giving them their due course? Businesses don't typically like taking risks, since that's what they are, risky. There's no guarantee that if a studio was to pump millions of dollars into a Metroid movie that honors the series' roots of sci-fi horror, that it would earn a profitable return. The studios will do what is safe, tested, and guaranteed to boost their bottom line. With the Super Mario Bros. Movie being the massive hit that it is, I guess we'll just have to wait and see if other video game adaptations will be just as soulless and empty. And that's it! I recognize that I'm in the minority and not liking this movie as much as others, especially since I am a big fan of the Mario games, but trust me when I say that I deeply appreciate any of you who lasted this far into the video. It doesn't hurt to hear an opinion that differs from your own every now and then, so I hope that my words at least help you consider an alternate perspective on the film. If you liked what you saw here and would be eager to see more of what I have to offer, please consider subscribing to the channel and joining the notification squadron so that you won't miss out on my future videos. And as always, thank you so much for watching my video.